So how we can all bring these together. So what I want you to do now is I want you to think about as many ideas as you can, however small or large, about how some of the people in the higher echelons of the integrated care system can engage more with the rest of us, and what messages you would like to give to the new CEO and accountable officer, accountable that is to NHS England as well as all of us, what messages you'd like to give to the new CEO and accountable officer of our Cornwall integrated care system. Okay, right. Yes, not a huge task.
And
right.
Sally, given the time, I wonder if, and also given the richness of what you've just described, we might stay in plenary rather than go into another breakout group.
Sounds like a good idea. Yeah, right.
How other people are feeling about that, but
yeah. So any thoughts, any ideas on any of this, or anything you want to feed in that you don't think's been mentioned or is happening or whatever? Becky's got her hand up first.
I have. It's a small rant, but it's about the care. I am quite good at ranting. It's around diabetes care. As a lot of people know, it's a personal thing to me as well. Right. But diabetes and mental health, diabetes and physical health is huge. It impacts right across the board. There's oh my goodness, what's the word I'm looking for? There's a device that can be used, a Freestyle Libre device that can be used to promote positive blood sugar control, better lifestyle, helps with physical activity because people are able to get out and use it a lot more. It helps showing trends in blood sugar. It's something that is incredibly expensive and people aren't allowed to access it unless they have really debilitating hypos, which cause hospitalization, or if they have to test 8 times a day for 3 months to be allowed to have this device, which prevents a lot of people from being able to do it. So, you know, that type of thing, I think, as a pressure group in some way to be able to put that forward to health. So it's all very well being, you know, able to go on a walking group and setting up walking groups, which are absolutely fantastic out in community groups. However, if someone isn't able to do that because they can't control their blood sugar and aren't given access to something because it's considered too expensive, then I think that's something that perhaps could be taken up in some way to the CEO of the new integrated health.
Okay, fine, right, excellent. Yes, and I think that's right. So how would you do that? Maybe through the surgeries in your local area, you can find out if there are people who have diabetes, who are in the categories you describe, etc., who'll be willing to form their own group. So this is part of citizenship. We've got already in Perranporth a group that's a pain cafe that Nikki Kelly and Dr. Huddy set up together, and a consultant from Trelisk. And so people with really chronic, is it chronic or acute chronic, I think, isn't it, pain, and who are on opioids, strong opioids, they've gathered together people in our community who agreed to meet, and it's very successful. And now there are people from St Agnes who are also joining the Pain Cafe, and they're supporting each other. And the hope is Dr. Huddy and the consultant are just absolutely obsessed with the idea of getting people off opioids altogether, or at least reducing their dosage massively, so that in fact the opioids aren't causing all their problems, it's the other problems, and the other problems can be dealt with in other ways. So I think that's a really good idea, Becky. Form those citizens groups, go through the surgery, find groups of people who can then build, and they could join with people with diabetes in St Agnes, in Chasewater, in the PCN, beyond in the integrated care area. Okay, next, who would like to say something next?
Annette has commented in the chat, just
right.
I don't know if you wanted to say that out loud, or I can read it out for you, Annette, if you're here.
Yeah, I just I think it's a big question. It's hard to answer, but the main thing is listening to people. So I think that's the message to the new CEO, is listening to the people that are, you know, in the communities, and whether that message is filtered through people like ourselves on the, you know, the organisations and so forth, or whether it's direct. I think it's unmanageable to expect the CEO to listen to everyone directly, but yeah, I think the listening. And and also about change. People generally are resistant to change. We all are. So it's managing that and doing it in small steps and explaining. I think communication's such an important thing. So you listen to somebody, you explain what's going to happen, but then you listen to their complaints and then explain it again. It's like it's not a just, this is what's happening and this is good for everyone, you know, and just telling people that it's going to be better is not obviously the way forward. I agree. And I think your event that you did, Sally, in Perranporth, sorry, my spelling was wrong on the chat. Perranporth is brilliant, and I think it'd be great to do more of those. Bringing people together, like you say, is the key.
Good, excellent, thank you. Yes, and I agree with you entirely, because people can speak, but they're not necessarily listened to. And if you really listen to, then something follows, doesn't it? All right, and there's the dialogue then continues, or there's action, or there's feedback in some way, because it's not just getting your voice out there, it's actually being heard, being listened to, and that is vital. One of the ways that people do actually get through as individuals to people is, if any of you've been, I'm sure some of you have, and maybe some of you supported patients, is that Royal Commonwealth Hospital Trust governing bodies and the CCG, that they have patient stories, and patients and sometimes a relative will tell their story. One that was told at the CCG 2 years ago, maybe more now, yes, with COVID times lapses, isn't it strange, was a relative talking about the suicide of his sister. There wasn't a dry eye in the house, and it really, really impacted everybody, what happened and the way that services let his sister down. I mean, there was no getting away from it. It was awful. And on the back of that, a lot of things in the strategy were put in place, and it really galvanized people. And then there was a report back to the governing body to say, following that, this is what's happened, this is what's being put in place now, this is, yes. So I mean, that was incredibly powerful. But all the stories that are told, somebody at RCHT, this is several years ago, she came and she'd been a patient for just about 5 days, and one of the things that drove her absolutely nuts in the ward was the fact that the doors squeaked and banged every time anybody went through them. And you know, all the nurses, doctors went out, came in, bang crash, and they didn't notice. And she said, and they said, oh yeah, I know. And they carried on. But one of the things that she mentioned, and as a result, they actually went round and started trying to do something about doors not banging and putting rubber on them or doing things in places. So taking people, that's another thing. If you've got somebody who you think they've got a really powerful story, that was just one element of her story, RCHT and the governing body are very open to having somebody come and talk to them and tell them about the pathway and what happened, the good and the bad, so that they can use that to build on. And they are very powerful things, tools, stories, people stories. They really are. Yes, Maria. Maria, you got your hand up?
I'm there. I was just fiddling around trying to unmute. Oh,
good.
Sorry, Sally. Oh, two things there then. One on the back of what you've just said. My team had something called ambassador training, but I'm going to have to look it up, Adam, and then send it to you in an email, because for the life of me, I wouldn't find it now. And that's all about, they're trying to collect 1,000 stories. They'll have no problem doing it. So we've just sent one, but they train you in how to do it. They give you all the details of how to ask people. And this will all be fed back to the NHS. The idea is to bring about change. Great. So change through stories. So that's one thing. But excellent. My thoughts are, what would I say? Well, my opening would be, ask us, don't assume. And it's the dangers of assumption and expectation, especially the third sector resources and the volunteer sector. It's about, you know, what availability is there? What knowledge does everybody have, especially in volunteers? What can be done as opposed to what's expected to be done? Yeah. And especially in a virtual world. I mean, our charity, not speaking out of turn, I don't think, we've been struggling like mad with the costs of our IT resources. So when somebody's having to go home for 14 days, we don't have another laptop for that person to continue working at home. We don't have it set up in a way that they can. And so we're a person down. That's happening a lot. The assumption about what a charity can do, and Age UK Cornwall's quite big compared to other charities, but it's tiny compared to others. So resource base is still huge. And
Yeah.
so that I know is about cost, but human resource. And from our point of view, as people who do reach out to other community resources beyond us, a huge number, for example, crews are all volunteers apart from 2 part-time paid admin. And I think people forget that. And then they say, oh, crews haven't contacted me for 6 weeks. I think they're all volunteers.
Yes.
It's that lack of understanding about what the volunteer sector really is. And
Yes.
the human impact ends up being that volunteers will move away because they're exhausted and fatigued and they've joined something, probably out of all the goodness of their heart, but they may be full-time working or they've retired, so there's those 2 complexities. But there's a lot of assumption about what third sector and what volunteers can do.
I agree entirely, and I think Helen Boardman is working hard on that front, isn't she? But I think the thing that I learned as well over the years is that a lot of the charities and people, and some, your good selves, spend an awful lot of time chasing resources, chasing funding, which isn't right, because the services that you all provide are essential services. They are essential services. They shouldn't. That's what I mean about this invisible divide. They should be things that are funded. You should be funded. You shouldn't be chasing monies all the time. Keith, you were waving your hand around. Hello, can't hear you. Muted. Okay.
Yeah, it was to address the issue about becoming more familiar with the integrated care system and the personnel. And I wonder whether we could not use this platform, in fact, and possibly through yourself and Adam, to invite. The problem is, of course, there are 3 teams, as you described, because ideally it would be each team for each area. So, because I think, what's happening with Cornwall is that people coming here to these meetings, in a way, we are ambassadors. Certainly, we're representatives of interests and groups. And so, I mean, what is learned in the dialogue with the teams, the new integrated care system teams, would be useful. And this forum, I think, could provide that that connection. And I think you'd get a very good audience. But whether it can be done 3 times for each of the 3 ICAs, I don't know.
Okay, go on, Adam.
Keith, be for them to explain a bit more about what it is and how it works, and then to hear back from us what our views are, and for them to listen to those. Is that the sort of thing?
And what our concerns are? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's a very good idea, and I think this is happening in smaller groups in different areas. I mean, the integrated care area forums, the PPG umbrella group, for instance, we get people to talk to us and explain things to us. But I think this is a good idea because this brings together different people. So if Adam's up for that, then we could talk about who to invite and see how it goes. And then other people might think, oh, right, okay, so we could take that to North and East, and maybe we could pull in some people. Maybe somebody's got a connection there that they could open up the dialogue.
And someone has also asked, how can we, Ali Wills was asking, is it possible to have the contact details for Rachel Murray and Paula Bland and Donna Chapman?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, indeed it is. Yes.
Can we share those? Are they okay with us to share their emails, do you think?
I think what I'll do is I'll contact the 3 of them. Yeah. And then I'll send the emails to you, Adam, and then you can send them out if they're happy for that to happen.
Yeah, I think
Does that work?
That'd be good to ask them first, but it'd be really
oh, absolutely. I wouldn't. Yeah, right. Okay, good. Yep.
but then we can also talk to them about talking maybe at the next session in a month's time.
Yeah, good. Yeah,
such an important area for all of us to understand, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that would be good. Excellent.
Even